I truly cannot believe that I'm talking about a win. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Dirty Bird Fly Through. And after a franchise record 19 penalties in this game, after a 28-14 deficit in the fourth quarter, after losing 7 out of your last 8 games, and this being a game that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers sorely needed to keep pace with the Carolina Panthers in the NFC South, maintain first place, and maintain the ability to control their own destiny. The Atlanta Falcons went into Tampa on the Buccaneers' 50th anniversary celebration night and shocked everybody, pulling off a miraculous upset victory. And there's a lot that can be said about it's a division game. It's a Thursday night game. And obviously, we know that those types of games, anything can happen in them. We know that, these have been games that have grown a reputation essentially for being those upset spots, being those big underdog spots. But even still, if you would have told someone alone that the Falcons had 19 penalties in this game, you would have thought that we're talking about Raheem Morris getting fired tomorrow. We're not talking about the Falcons winning this game. But that is what ended up happening by hook or by crook. The Falcons won this game despite, in many instances, really doing everything they could to lose this game. Obviously, the penalties. There were mistakes that were made by the Falcons still. It was not the cleanest game, certainly on both sides of the ball. The Falcons still made a lot of the same mistakes we had been accustomed to them making these past 7, 8 games. There was a short kick on a kickoff that led to the Bucs getting it at the 40-yard line. There was countless offsides, holding calls, pass interferences. You would have never thought in a million years that the Falcons would have won this game. And honestly, I'm even pondering with how I really accept this win, because I feel like when you see the Falcons get a win like this, you want to be proud of the team for not giving up, even when it did look like tonight that it was a possibility at times. It looked like when the Buccaneers were up 28-14 that the floodgates were getting ready to or had already opened, and this was going to end up being another ugly loss for the Falcons. However, this team didn't quit, and you got to give credit to them. These are guys that at the end of the day, this is their livelihood. They are trying to put food on their families' tables. And you had certain guys come out with a very big statement in this game. Kyle Pitts with his signature game as an Atlanta Falcon. 11 catches, 166 yards, 3 touchdowns. Kyle Pitts was an absolute monster tonight. Kirk Cousins. And I truly think that if nothing else, you can guarantee at this point, on a Thursday night versus the Buccaneers, Kirk Cousins is going to show up to play, and he's going to show up to win. 30 for 44, 377 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns. Bijan Robinson with 175 scrimmage yards and a touchdown. His best game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in his career. Those were the guys that won you this game. This was not a well-coached game by any stretch of the imagination. I know they showed Raheem Morris at the end of the game talking into the camera, acting like he had done everything in his power to win this game. That is not what happened. Kirk Cousins, Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, those guys put the Atlanta Falcons on their back on red helmet night, and there is clearly some red helmet magic in the air. If anyone denies the magic that those red helmets bring, I don't know what to tell you. You clearly do not understand destiny. You don't understand fate. You don't understand how that clearly propels this Atlanta Falcons team whenever they are wearing those red helmets. And at the end of the day, I really, though, am pondering between obviously being very proud with how this team came out because they could have easily have laid down. They could have quit. They didn't. But it also makes me look back on games earlier in the year, even a couple weeks ago against the New York Jets, against the Carolina Panthers when you had a two-touchdown lead early in that game. And if you would have just won two of those games, you're talking about this win tonight in a completely different circumstance, especially considering that Tampa Bay's season is absolutely collapsing on itself. After starting 5-1, they're now 7-7, and this was a very big game tonight. Obviously, that the Panthers were watching. We gave Carolina that assistance. They now have sole possession of first place in the NFC South for the first time in 10 years. And the Falcons definitely came out and played their role of spoiler tonight. But let me be very clear, and I've been, kind of debating back and forth because is this win the most impressive? No, it's not. It's really not impressive because I don't think the Falcons even played that well, but they still managed to find a way to win. And I feel like I don't know if it's more so the Falcons won or the Bucks lost, but the Falcons ended up with more points on the scoreboard. They won this game, and I'm kind of shocked that they did. But I am glad to see that the team in its entirety did not quit. You never want to see that happen. But I do want to give out some game balls here. First game ball, I talked about Kyle Pitts. The night that he had was absolutely spectacular. And when we drafted Kyle Pitts in 2021, all we wanted was consistency. We wanted this guy to come out and give stellar performances. And throughout much of his career, inconsistency has been the one consistency with Kyle Pitts. You never knew what Kyle Pitts you were going to get. But it is clear and obvious that when you give Kyle Pitts a veteran quarterback that's going to put belief in him, that is when Kyle Pitts, he's at his best when he's involved. And you clearly saw Kyle Pitts involved tonight, especially with Drake London out for another game. If you had any chance to win this game, you needed someone to step up. That ended up being Kyle Pitts, and he ended up taking off in this game for that crazy stat line. His signature game so far as an Atlanta Falcon definitely is going to be the game that he's going to highlight when free agency comes around in March. And that's going to be a tough decision that now when you look back on this game, the Atlanta Falcons might just have to consider a little deeper than maybe you were prior to this game. But kudos to Kyle Pitts for an amazing game. Next, I'm giving the game ball to Kirk Cousins because, as I said earlier, you can bank on death, taxes, and Kirk Cousins torching the Buccaneers defense. 30 for 44, 377 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, no interceptions. He played absolutely amazing tonight. And you always got the feeling that this type of game was a Kirk Cousins spot. But to see, especially with where this team was, Kirk Cousins put this team on his back tonight. He provided that veteran leadership that this team sorely needs. And he was able to keep those guys churning, even down by 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. It felt like that the Falcons didn't give up, and they just kept punching. And eventually, that is what led to Zane Gonzalez being able to go out there and kick a game-winning field goal because those guys never gave up. And Kirk Cousins was that source of confidence that the Falcons needed. It truly felt like for about any other team, they would have lost this game. But with Kirk Cousins and his ability to go out and make life a living hell for Todd Bowles and that Buccaneers defense, that is what carried the Falcons to victory. Next game ball, Bijan Robinson, another very stellar night for him. 175 yards from scrimmage, a touchdown. And Bijan Robinson, if there's been one team that you really feel like has been able to keep him in check throughout his career, it's been the Buccaneers. But he certainly did his part tonight, as he does usually. But he was definitely very critical and, just something that they could lean back on when they needed to. He's what works. And he definitely gets a lot of credit. And going over to the defensive side of the ball for a moment, I gotta give it to our 2026 first round pick. James Pierce gets another game ball, another game, another sack, 8 sacks now on the year. He is definitely on pace for one of the best, if not the best, Falcons um, rookie seasons that we have gotten out of a pass rusher in our franchise's history. So that trade is absolutely paying off very well. But, you know, to end this thing off, I just feel like, it's amazing to spoil the Buccaneers season. It's amazing to go into Tampa when no one thought you would with your backs against the wall and get that victory. That's always an amazing feeling. But really now, I think it puts the Falcons in a tough position of where do you approach this moving forward? Obviously, you still have to see the remaining games this season, but at the end of the day, as someone who has been calling for Raheem Morris's job, it feels like regardless of the role Raheem Morris played in this win tonight, or how much he actually contributed to it, it still feels like a win like this could be a difference between Raheem Morris getting fired at the end of this year or potentially earning a third year. So I definitely think that you want to see if the Falcons can build any momentum off of this game. We have seen this before with the Falcons. They will win these types of games late in the year that they're not expected to win, and they go into the next season. That momentum does not carry over. But at the end of the day, there's no purpose to play these games if you aren't playing them to win them. And that's what you also have to understand. That's what I've been telling myself. So the Falcons, they came out, and at the end of the day, they, ironically enough, as Raheem Morris has said, they found a way to win. And you got to give them credit for that, at least, for the game that they had. But with that being said, I appreciate everyone for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, comment, share out, and I will see you all in the next video.